lovely morning or evening if you are maybe in Japan or Australia, Singapore. But if you are in North America, it's good morning. If you are in Europe, it's good afternoon. And I'm Chris Sandeman, and I'm back for another live stream today. And today we're doing our first live stream from the borough of Queens. We're back at a botanic garden. In fact, it's a botanical garden, this particular one, because we are in Flushing, Queens, and we're at the site of the Queens Botanical Garden. Now, if you are watching this live, it is Sunday for you at just around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time. And if it is Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or not, the 8th of August 2021, then you're watching a pre-recorded video. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't hit the like button though, so go ahead and just press thumbs up. Lets more people know about the videos, which is always great. Hey Michaela, thanks for joining. Now guys, I'm trying something new today for the first time, on YouTube at least. Now, Facebook was a little bit funky yesterday. It kind of stopped and didn't really start again and then started again. But on YouTube, what we're doing right now is I'm using ultra low latency, which means that maybe the signal won't be as strong, but I've got tons of bars right now. I'm on like 5G with 4 bars. So I think that I should have good data no matter what. But hey, good morning, Rebecca, welcome. If you can give me a sense, especially you regulars like Rebecca and Michaela, let me know if the quality on YouTube feels a little bit crappy, and let me know if the my hellos back, my talking back to you again feels any faster, because in theory the quality might be a little bit lower, but the connection between us, how quickly we're talking to one another, should be faster. Alexa, hi. I saw your message come in there, and I waited a second to finish that thought before I said hello back to you. So don't use that as a judgment of when I saw and repeated back and forth. And also, Alexa, you're over on Facebook, which I don't think the latency is going to change at all over there. So we'll see. But oh gosh, Alexa, I'm so happy that you're joining today as we go through this botanical garden, because there's a lot less information out there about this one than the one in Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden that we were at 2 days ago. Hey Mila, good to see you. Hey Lorraine, thanks for joining over on YouTube. Appreciate you guys being here today. So if you want to get a feeling of where we are, you can open up another window right now on your phone or your laptop or whatever. Hey Michelle, hey Lourdes, welcome guys. Ross, good to see you. Hope you and Nikki are having a wonderful day, brother. So if you want to, you can open up another browser and take a look to see where we are right now on YouTube. We're in Queens, in Flushing, at the Queens Botanical Garden. We're on a over 50-acre estate. Alexa, should you switch to YouTube? Let's wait and see what if we get some feedback from Rebecca and Michaela, who are over on YouTube already, and see what their experience is like, and then I can feed that back to you guys. If you guys are having, good experience or bad experience on one platform or another, then I'll feed it back and let you know. But for right now, I think you find wherever you're most comfortable. I mean, look, there's a lot of benefits to Facebook in that the comments stay. You can we can chat with each other. You can have your own threads and things like that to connect in the community. I think there's a lot of advantages there. But if YouTube allows us for you to type something and then for me to be get that within a second and be able to talk back to you, then that's nicer than having to wait. I got some feedback from some of you guys that, for instance, on the over the last couple of days, sometimes you'll write something and it'll be 45 seconds before I've seen it and replied to you, and I don't think that's fair for you. So anyway, yeah, cool, Alexa, we're on the same page then. And Michelle, thanks for saying hi over on YouTube. Like I was saying, this is not actually, the original location of the original Queens Botanical Garden. The original location was if you were a Mets outfielder, you could throw a ball or throw a stone to the original location, because the original location was over at the site of the 1939-1940 World's Fair. Hey, Saul, amigo, cabrón, ¿qué tal? Sawa Mercado. Great to see you, buddy. Michelle says over on YouTube on YouTube that YouTube and Facebook both look fine. Great, good. All right, well, that's fantastic stuff. So like I was saying, this was not the original site of the Queens Botanical Garden. The original site was not too far away from here, where the World's Fair was in 1939, 1940. And after the World's Fair was completed, the garden was allowed to stay there, right, and remain. It was like one of the few really positive things that our good old buddy and city planner, the infamous Robert Moses, the Kingmaker, never elected, but he was the Parks Commissioner, and more than any other mayor or individual, really, we could say that the New York City that we know today, the way that the highways and the bridges are laid out, the parks and the beaches, it's Robert Moses. He put his fingerprints all over this place, and ultimately it'll be the World's Fair coming up in the 1960s, 1961, I believe, World Fair, where they build all the spaceship-y kind of extraterrestrial future-facing stuff out here in the fairgrounds in Queens. That eventually, that's when the decision is made that the Queens Botanical Garden is not going to be able to stay where it is. Now, it was just a concept of like gardens on parade. That's what it was called to begin with. It was just a visiting garden for the initial World Fair. But people liked it so much, and local residents said, we're going to protect it and support it and make sure that it doesn't disappear, and volunteer to do so, that allowed it to stay ultimately. But it wasn't without some philanthropy, of course. And our big donator to the Queens Botanical Garden is a woman by the name of Pratt. Hold on a second. Let me just refer to my notes real quick. Harriet, there she is. Harriet Pratt. Now, Harriet Barnes Pratt was not just a philanthropist. She'd married into the Standard Oil family. And her husband, Harold, his father, had been one of the early joiners into the Rockefeller Standard Oil. Today we'd call them ExxonMobil. And that meant that he himself, the husband, Harold, as a director of Standard Oil, the Pratts had good connections, both financially, politically as well. Harriet was an advisor to multiple presidential administrations. She advised Calvin Coolidge, she advised Herbert Hoover, she advised Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself, and also Harry S. Truman. So she was in from the Coolidge all the way through the Truman administrations. And it's through a lot of her work and support that the Queens Botanical Garden, those original Gardens on Parade, will be able to first survive and then be endowed enough to be able to transition over when other gardens or botanical gardens in New York were struggling throughout those 40s, 50s, and through Robert Moses, who didn't have an issue with building highways. In fact, the New York Botanical Garden up in the Bronx got a highway built through one of its corners, which I guess you could argue made it easier to get to, but also much louder. Good morning, Jill. Welcome. All right, so knowing that we're not in the original location, which the garden had started at, which was only acreage in the 30s. Now we're acreage in the 50s here. When the gardens move from its previous location not too far away to where it is today, they take a couple of trees with them. Let's turn around and let's get started. Okay, so there are two blue Atlas cedars. One right here, another one right over here. And these are two of the original trees that were on display during the Gardens on Parade exhibit during the 1939-1940 World's Fair. It was an international fair, and the Gardens on Parade, the U.S. contribution was set up right next to and across, actually, the British delegation of plants. Because as far as horticulture goes, it's really been like the Brits, the French, and then the Americans starting in the 1700s. And this is the main entrance to the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. So it's nice that these two cedars from the old gardens kind of frame the entranceway as we now enter in the way that many people would. Now, we are here at a free moment. In fact, they've just started charging again at 11 a.m. my local time, about 10 minutes ago. I've been here for over an hour and a half now, exploring and looking around. So I came in when it was free. On Sunday mornings from 9 to 11, you've got free entrance most weekends. And then on Wednesday afternoons, you also have free entrance. That's all during the summer season. During the winter season, you have, like, from October to March, it's optional payment whenever you come visit. So this is a little fountain here. It's one of the things that the gardens here specifically pride themselves on, is that they do an incredible job of recapturing rainwater. And they have a system to recapture it and then feed it back into the gardens. It's a very high percentage. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's something that they spent a fair bit of money on in the 90s in order to be able to be as environmentally friendly as possible. Although that being said, well, I mean, the last thing I want to do is start off a visit to the Queens Botanical Gardens and kind of poop on their environmentalism. But they have this bridge over here, which they make a big point of saying that it's wood with a past. The boards in this bridge you're about to walk on are made of reclaimed wood mixed with recycled plastic. And it's basically a pitch to in the future, when you're going to buy wood mixed with recycled plastic. And I have to be honest with you, that's not really the message that we want to be telling people. We want to be super green about it. The real message is don't use plastics. And recycling is, fortunately, even recycled plastics, the vast majority of recycled plastics cannot be recycled or do not end up recycled. They're downcycled into mixed wood beams or benches or things like that. And once something's been downcycled, it can never be recycled again. And that's it. We've got it forever until it starts to break down into microplastics, which get into our water supply, into our fish, and then eventually into our mouths. So something good and bad there. You know what I mean? Great to reclaim the rainwater, but wrong message on the plastics, maybe a little bit. Well, what about this particular garden, which we are going to be exploring for the next hour together, and some interesting things about it. Well, first of all, is the location, Flushing, Queens. And Flushing is the most diverse neighborhood of all of the 5 boroughs. It's also one of the most tightly packed and populous neighborhoods. So you've got a lot of people and a lot of different types of people. And the Botanic Gardens serves as right in the smack dab middle of the district, serves as a place for everyone to kind of come together. And when you talk about the diversity of the visitors, the number one demographic group of visitors who come to the garden here are actually Chinese Americans, and they make up 32% of the visitors, followed by Caucasians at 28%, Hispanic, Latino people at 21%, which actually, of course, they represent a heck of a lot more than just one culture, because that's going to be Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, Central, South Americans, Mexican Americans. I've actually gone up a path that I hadn't tried before. It turned out to be more or less a dead end, so we're going to head back this way. And then there's, of course, African Americans and all other groups. It's actually one of the things that the Queens Borough president, recently said was that the borough of Queens is actually the world's borough because it is so diverse. And this garden, as we walk around, you'll notice there are a lot of Asian Americans, many more than we would see in other parts of of New York normally, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. There's also a big Korean American population in Queens. We're going to go back out this way and follow the route that I was on before rather than confusing myself or you guys too much. So, so it was starting in 1961 that was the date that I gave before for that World's Fair. It's not actually. It was 1964 was the World's Fair. It's 1961 that, knowing that World's Fair is coming, that they already moved the garden and started laying the space over here in what before was largely landfill and dumping areas, where the 64 World Fair is going to go, replacing the space of those gardens. And in fact, before the gardens were there in 39, 40, you actually had a bit of a horticultural history already associated. Look at these marigolds down here. Take a quick look at some plants. You already had a real horticulturist history in that previous space. And this is, it's always nice to beat up on Robert Moses a little bit, because he was a man that had no problem destroying beauty and neighborhoods in order to build his bridges and to build his highways. He actually knocks down the old prince's homestead. I'm not talking about royalty, although from a horticulturist standpoint, these guys were royalty, but the family's name was Prince. And hey, Jenny Jean, thanks for that Purple Heart. The family's name was Prince, and they had actually been an old family that had been in the Americas all the way back since the Plymouth colony. They actually, it was a prince who was the first governor of the Plymouth colony. And by 1727, 1737, the princes have set up the first commercial nursery in the Americas. And the reason why I said 1720s to begin with, is because there was actually an earlier nursery that was set up, but it was not this large commercial nursery that the princes would create. It was a smaller nursery in Philadelphia by the name of a guy named Bartram. But the prince's nursery here in what one day will become like City Field, where the Mets play today, they were pioneers in horticulturalism and biodiversity. Their customers included George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams. You had maple trees, sugar maple trees, that were purchased by Thomas Jefferson and moved from the Prince's nursery down to Monticello in Virginia, because Jefferson was convinced that, not actually unlike our concerns sometimes in the US about dependency on foreign powers for natural resources like oil or something like that. Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers and president, he was convinced that sugar dependency was something that the U.S. had to be careful of, and not to become overly dependent upon the Caribbean sugarcane and sugar-producing islands that were, of course, British, French, Dutch, Spanish. So he was looking for other ways to be able to, to produce enough sugar for this burgeoning new country, the United States. And his thought was sugar maple trees. Unfortunately, as anyone who spent time up in Vermont knows, sugar maple trees do not really grow, or they grow, they don't flourish that far south. It's too warm. And in order for you to get the maple sap to rise, right, you need it to get cold enough for it to come out of the ground, right? And the tree protecting itself moves the sap up to the tree. So not cold enough in Virginia, sorry. So that doesn't actually work out. But the point of it was that I'm trying to make here is that the princes were kind of like an earlier horticultural influence to what will one day become the first site of the gardens that we are walking around today, although a new location, right? So the location that we're in moved from the 1939-1940 location, which had been home to the Prince's nursery. Those Prince's guys, they were actually really smart. They did a bunch of other stuff as well. They had an average of 8 to 10 ships per day landing at the Flushing's Landing, which was an entryway to the ocean. And these ships, as they'd be returning to New York Harbor and to New York City, they would stop on their way or shortly after having offloaded their cargo. And it was a standing invitation that people knew that the princes were there and willing to buy any plants or any seeds that you had found on your explorations around the world as a ship's captain. So it was a place where you knew that you could come and pull in a little bit of extra cash. So the princes were smart in that way as well. After Lewis and Clark explored out towards the Louisiana Purchase to document and understand what all of that stuff was there, then when they return, they bring back small plant clippings and seeds and such for plants. And the vast majority of those plants end up at Prince's nursery as well for cultivation, study, and the rest. Now, I'm not, although I should know exactly what the name of the infection was that was attacking the French vineyards, that kind of disease, and hopefully either someone by the name of Sandeman or Mercado is going to jump in and remind me of that disease that was killing off the French vineyards. It was actually at the Prince's nursery, again here in Flushing's, Queens, that they would graft over a variety of an American grown and developed variety of vines in order to save the entirety of the French, vineyard system, because they were resilient to said virus. So anyway, the point of it is that it made a big difference, these guys, the princes, and really had a real impact. Oh, this is kind of beautiful over here. Let me show you guys this, not to be spying on this lady. It's one of our wonderful Chinese American contributors to this community here in Queens. There's Tai Chi most mornings here in the garden. So really giving proof to one of the missions of the Queens Botanical Gardens, that this should be a place for people, plants, and cultures, all mingling together. Well, I've caught her in her thing. Let's give her some space. Marial asking for tours in Spanish. Hey, Mariel, sorry that I can't explain this necessarily in Spanish, but we are very close to having at least one weekly Spanish tour organized by Sandeman's New Europe itself. If I could do tours in Spanish, I promise you I would be doing them, but I can't, so I'm not going to be able to pull it off. I do hear some music over here. I'm going to try to avoid it. Yeah, that's that music, and hopefully not coming through for too loud and too long. on with the plants. So a much smaller space that we're in today, and a much smaller place than the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, as well as a smaller gardens than the New York Botanic Gardens, which is actually in the Bronx, which was the first of the Botanic Gardens, with that goal. And remember, how is a botanical garden or a botanic garden different than a regular garden or a regular park? Well, botanical gardens are dedicated to both including to the development, the study, as well as the exhibition, the exhibiting of rare plants and plant species. So that's the goal of this, rather than, yes, Alexa, to answer your question, was that traditional Chinese music in the background? It was. Hopefully you didn't hear it for longer than 10 seconds, or else I'm gonna have to go back and edit it out, or YouTube will ding us. Or maybe not. Maybe that was a recording from home rather than something that was actually published. Although it does kind of seem unfair. Well, no, copyright's copyright, and I support content creators and artists getting what they deserve for the work that they're doing. So, beautiful here. Let's cut through this middle circle and explore around to this side. Really vibrant colors. It's in the 70s right now. It's been raining this morning and last evening. Hi Jeanette, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for the wave. I know it's still a little bit early for you on the West Coast. We're just talking about music and my need to get some MP4 coverage. Jeanette, I did try, without success, putting the MP4s into Prism. I think that I have another solution. Unfortunately, it's a little bit low tech, which is going to be actually putting them on my second phone and just pressing play on my phone to make sure that the sound from my phone covers up the sound from from any kind of external microphones around me. Hello, Mr. Honeybee. Thank you for your service. Appreciate you doing what you do, buddy. But don't forget, guys, moths. Moths are the bees of the night. So you see a moth, it's not a mosquito. Moths are good. Just like bees without stingers and huge pollinators. So worth considering. Right. But yeah, it is a very it's a very Asian American garden right now. I think I'm the only white person that I've seen so far since I've been in. So feels like I've teleported. No, Jeanette. I am on. I'm on an iPhone. Let's talk more about it, because if it worked for you, then when I go into Prism to import the media, it just gives me a choice of on my phone or like iCloud, and then neither one of those works in the end. It's not populating what I've downloaded from Dropbox onto my phone. But we'll go into it. If you've got 10-15 minutes sometime in the next couple of days, we'll do that for sure. Alexa writing, moths are actually nocturnal butterflies, but they're both part of the same order. Lepidoptera. Lex is adding on Facebook says they are indeed super important pollinators and part of the food chain. And some have super crazy colors and whatnot. Yeah, I like moths. That's cool. And I like thinking of them as nocturnal butterflies. I think that's a really nice way to see them and think of them. See a little bit of water still on these guys. Oh, look at that, it's like a tiny little bee there. A baby bee. While I like these small flowers, it's hard not to be attracted to these gigantic, weird alien stalk plants over here. What are you guys with your spikinesses? It's interesting, in my research I read something about this, and I was talking about the power and the history of botanic gardens, that so much of it is really just tied in to food and providing a steady, reliable food supply. I mean, that's why all that scientific research was so important. And then, you think about the potato blight, and I'd studied under a professor at one point who'd spoken about the blight, and that a lot of it was just incredibly bad timing. That the variety of potato that was used in one year, the first year of the blight, was just not able to cope with their blight and also conditions of the time, dry versus wet climate, a wet season or a drier season. And the professor proposed that if the farmers had actually just stuck with the same potato varietal in the following years, that it would have, the conditions had changed enough that actually, because of seasonal rainfall, it would have produced and survived. I mean, the guy was a little controversial because he also kind of suggested that a lot of the problem was just Irish potato farmers. Even though there was lower stocks of potatoes, they were still selling on a lot of the food that they were getting onto British purchasers, right? So hence kind of a self-established food shortage combined with poor transportation means and not a lot of infrastructure, which certainly would have been the British's fault in Ireland itself. But I mean, look, the point of it is that millions of people move because of food shortages, right? Back then in the 1800s. And hey, talking about bees, see, I didn't even see this before as I was doing my scoping around. That's the thing about walking around 50 acres, is that you don't always see everything that you're looking for. And if you guys are watching and you're not sure what these bugs are flying in and out of these little yellow houses, they are bees. And they are out doing the pollination stuff. So in there's a queen, and we got a hive. Hives are actually worth a lot of money. So you got to be careful, because people will break into your beehive areas and steal your hives. Well, Lorraine, moths are the bees of the night. You really like that, Chris. Don't give me credit for it. That's Alexa said that over on Facebook. You just missed her commenting on it, but she definitely gets credit for that. Although I imagine Alexa wasn't the first person to say it either. The point is, she was the first person to say it in this live stream. So, hashtag Alexa. Jeanette writes, there's a giant flower about to bloom at the... It's called the corpse flower. Ugh. That's kind of creepy. The corpse flower. Ugh. What does it look like? Oh. Lexa writes, on the potato theme kind of thing, the problem with using the same bloodline, so to say, is that that line in particular is susceptible to then all your supplies are susceptible to it. That makes a lot of sense, right? So if you have a susceptible varietal, and then you have non-susceptible varietals, whatever kind of you take from one varietal or the next will import and inherit a lot of those properties. And then Alexa writes, plants we consume like bananas or agave, the blue agave plant used for tequila production. They use the same clones to keep reproduction and domestication. Once they find something that works, they're doing it again and again and again. But those ones are currently getting ravaged by fungal infections, and a lot of them are weak to it. And that makes a ton of sense because, of course, once a farmer thinks that they've struck gold, they might continue using that same setup again and again and again, not realizing that hyper focusing and not having biodiversity means that should the time come, you're going to have a real hit. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, guys. So Jeanette says over to us on Facebook. Of course, you can't add a link because YouTube and Facebook don't want you guys being linked off and heading in a different direction. So no link to it. But if you Google Uncle Fester corpse flower Vancouver, you'll find it. I mean, are we talking about Uncle Fester, like the Addams Family Uncle Fester? Because that's the Uncle Fester I'm thinking of right now. A lot of bird song in the background right now, guys. That's the other thing to think about. In these little paradises of flowers and parks, we also get all these little insects. It's like there's little ants going in there and feeding as well. And then, of course, who eats the insects? It's the birds. Jeanette confirming that, yes, that's it, Chris. Uncle Fester from the Addams Family. I wish that, now, unlike the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, where we were the other day, each plant kind of had like a little thing stuck in the ground next to it, so I could sound and seem kind of smart by being like, oh look, and here is King John's foot, and oh look, it's John Wayne Bush. Here, notably, there are no explanations as to many of the plants that we're looking at, which makes it really tough for amateur botanist Chris here. Look how vibrant that color is. Is that coming through as absolutely vibrant for you guys as it looks on my phone screen? I mean, I guess so, right? Because we're all kind of looking at the same phone screens or laptops or computers or TVs. Oh. Tell me, guys, between flowers and trees, what gets your heart beating faster? I mean, I guess there's a time and a place for everything. But I feel like flowers end up being the things that really win me over. Of course, trees flower, Um, but seems to be the winners for me personally. But curious to see what you guys think, because that way I'll lean in one. Here we do have the little signs back again. Thank you. Oh, no. Doesn't really tell me much. Just tells me to protect our trees. Or is there a little... Well, it's not. Well, interesting story about them princes who we were talking about before, and how they finally kind of met the demise of their family and, you know, their property and the rest of it, and why by Robert Moses's times he'll be bulldozing their old farmstead and their old house in order to build the Flushing Bridge. It's because this here is the, wait, is this just a poem? No, sorry, that's just a poem. That is not a description, but it is oh, I see, because this is like an art exhibit actually here. Trunks sow cicaded bodies, trees and sails whisper in leaves. We were shipped and whipped, never forsaken brutal realities. We adopt roots to routes, sapped to the widening gap between butterflies and bees. In the fields, sugar was bitter, airing the sheer brutality of dawn's broken lullabies. On the branches of exilic brutality, see, we leave our photography on the face of pistils and tendrils, never as endless accounts of perils and hateful narratives. See our masthead. It tells you how we open routes to fertile roots. It bears our nameplate, our template, our fate when our heads met masts over the seas of erased pasts. Between masts and masks, see our faces, O unknown passenger, read the trunk and behold history. Our eyes are still sailing in eternity. That's friend and poet Kal Turabulli, founder of Coolitude, the inclusive methodology of indenture. Cool. Neat. Alexa writes, this might sound weird, but pine woods are my absolute favorites. Oh, very cool. They've been around for a long while, and certain groups like cicads were around with dinosaurs, and their life cycle is really interesting, actually. Oh, it's fascinating. Jeanette writes, between trees and flowers, I think they each have an amazing impact on the senses. Flowers are usually within the eye line, and when they're bright, often smell wonderful, can completely change the mood. That said, there's nothing like the rustle of trees in the wind. Very calming. I'm with you on that, Jeanette. Say, the rustling of trees in the wind is right up there with ocean waves for me, for kind of calming effect. Also, rain falling onto a forest around you. That sound of the rain hitting the trees and the leaves, but then also the bigger drops, you know, collecting and falling down to the ground as well. It really does a lot for me as well. These trees over here look like must be, is this a pear tree? Or a guava? I don't know. But there are definitely some green fruit up in there. Maybe it's an apple tree. That was one of the things for the princes. They had somewhere between 350 apples to talk back to that kind of the earliest heritage of this particular garden here. And actually telling you guys yet, and it was a decision for them to start to import the white mulberry, and white mulberries were being imported from France, and they invested heavily in it and got into a competition with another town across the Long Island Sound. I mean, actually, it's not just across Long Island Sound, it's across Long Island Sound and then, like 100 miles away into Connecticut. And that was the town of Manchester, Connecticut. Because, as it turns out, the white mulberry wasn't a plant that they were importing to grow to sell. They were importing it to feed it to silkworms. And the princes had decided they were going to diversify their nursery and start a cocoonery with silkworms. And why was this? Because it was the late 1860s. And we don't know for sure, but we think that the reason was that they were, this is an art exhibit here called Kaleidoscope. You can, you kind of get a feeling for how the mirrors all move around inside there. But like I was saying, it was the late 1860s, and cotton had been disrupted as a staple crop because of the Civil War. And the United States was a massive producer of the world's cotton. So the princes thinking, if cotton's not going to happen anymore and slavery is over, thank goodness, then we are going to look in a different direction, and we think there's going to be a lot of demand for silk. Unfortunately, the Manchesterans, Mancunians of Connecticut, no, that doesn't make sense to me, but the people of Manchester, Connecticut were already a step ahead, and the princes were not able to compete, and it would kind of bring on financial ruin for them, because silk didn't really catch on, and Manchester was a silk town, as they say, so pretty much everyone was involved either in raising silk moths or in the textile industry surrounding the production of silk textiles. So, well, yeah. Now, there's part of me that thinks that I've kind of hit the main highlights here. Thanks, Jeanette. Yes, that's right. In England, they're Mancunians. I've never heard that term for a Connecticut Manchester person, though. Although that would be so cool if that's what they called themselves too. Have to make my way up there at one point. Pretty sure Manchester, Connecticut's up near Hartford. So, now I've not been over to this part of the gardens here, so far. So bear with me as I'm kind of exploring and seeing part of it the same time that you are. But it looks like this is the farm and compost area, which is good because we tour right now together. Am I allowed to just open this up? All right, 3-bin system. We saw a 3-bin system the other day. Bin 1, this pile is hot. Take its temperature. I don't think I'm going to do that right now. And this is the 2nd bin. Looks emptied. And 3rd bin, this pile is curing. Fungi, insects, and worms reporting. All right. Oh, look, there's temperature in there. Looks like it's around 90 degrees. That's what that's saying right now. So it's about 10 degrees, 15 degrees warmer than air temperature inside. That decomposition. Lots of planes flying overhead because we are slap dab just around the corner. Airport, named after the great New York mayor Fiorello de LaGuardia, and so we get a lot of airplane traffic above us. And JFK, John F. Kennedy Airport, is also very close. So, farm is temporarily closed, but get a feeling of what they're working on over here. There are children's garden here. There's a seniors garden here, all with the idea of incorporating multi-generational people. Often the older generations, especially if they're immigrant generations, might not speak English that well. So there's something really beautiful about grandparents coming with their grandchildren and grandchildren helping to translate for older Chinese American or Korean American families. These things are really cool. I don't know if you guys can get a feeling of this, but it's like a little pod. It's like little Venus flytrappy kind of. I guess this opens up into this, huh? It's neat. I like how a lot of the botanic to smell and to touch, but just to be careful, like don't hurt the plant, but you can get a feeling for it. Lots of bees on this guy. Probably shouldn't touch it too much, just for my own safety. Hard at work. Sehr fleißig. Let's walk along this stretch here. Take a look at a couple more beautiful plants and flowers. And then we're going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so. And then I'm going to drive out quite kind of conveniently right now to another farm, much bigger than this little guy that we're looking at right now. We won't just see plants, we're also going to see animals. We might time it in time to jump on a hayride. We'll certainly see a hayride go by, because we are going to be heading out next to the Queens County Farm Museum, which is the longest continuously farmed plot of land. Areas that might have been stolen from the Native Americans and then turned into farms as well. Not do a ton of documentation of their, genocide and theft. Michaela, we should also probably see cows. Yes. On the website, I've not been there before, but on the website there are cows. Nice, Jeanette. Thanks. I'm glad that you find it peaceful. I find it very peaceful, even despite the sound of the airplanes going over regularly. It is very peaceful here. I'm watching my own video and it feels like the Bob Ross of live streams. And it's over here, just gonna, plant here and, just get some green down there. This is like a great section. I don't know why this isn't more of like a central zone over here. Probably giving myself Lyme disease walking through these tall grasses, but do a quick foot tan check, guys. The foot tan is coming along. We'll check back in on the foot tan in a couple weeks, see how it's coming. Well, I feel like I've walked us out to the far edge. What is this? Another little art exhibit. Art in the gardens. Conocer y compartir. We find each other, is what the sign below says. Conocer y compartir. We find each other is a series of 4 illuminated sculptures inspired by the lampposts from the 1964 New York World's Fair. Huh, neat. Alexa, oh, first of all, Jeanette, the egg solid even work? Yeah, I know, right? If I go barefoot, I've got to put on just a little layer of sunblock in that little section. Alexa, I won't give myself Lyme disease. Pretty much everyone in my family's had it. Growing up in Connecticut, only about a 40-minute drive from Lyme, Connecticut, meant that you had a good chance of picking up a deer tick if you weren't careful. So definitely always doing my eye out for the infamous bullseye, the big red spot that lets you know you got hit. And Ross, no chance. I always felt like Scottish people start off and then when the sun comes out they'll turn white, so like with a light blue layer there in the middle. I mean, a rainy day is a sunny day, right? No, I'm just kidding, of course. I'm sure there are very many opportunities for tanning. Although it always felt like during the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, no matter what happened, you'd always get a rainy August. And you're just like, how is it possible that August is going to be the rainiest part of the year? But go figure. I was talking to one of our community friends, Joel, who's down in Sydney. And of course he was talking about, skiing in Australia, like in June, July, and August. And this reminds me of what a big, amazing world we live in. And also to check your perceptions at the door, because what's true for you might not be true for billions of other people. So, Alexa, I know Michaela was also bemoaning the heavy rainfall this year in Germany. Ugh. Gosh. I mean, the scary thing is that, of course, the irregularity of the weather conditions that we all know and expect has changed so much lately as climate change impacts us. So it feels like we have rain in all the wrong places and drought in all the wrong places. The reports out of California with the wildfires, historic towns, and politicians walking around with God, I don't realize. You get excessive rain, so everything grows and then dies out, and then you've got a fire. So, yeah. Well, looks like I've come a little bit late for the main bloom of these guys. Just the residuals here, kind of left over. Ugh, these guys look thorny. Ouch, prickles. Right, well, let's spin it around. And what time do we have, folks? It's just gone about noon here. So I'm going to get on the road and get my butt over to the Queens County farm and do a little reconnaissance. Make sure that we've got a good signal. Switch to the SIM card, which gives us the best bandwidth. If folks that were on YouTube before I sign off right now, if you could give me a feeling of whether or not you felt like the latency was lower between when you said something and I replied compared to normal, or maybe Michaela, if you want to just like type a a hello, and then I'll just say to you right back again as soon as I've seen your hello come in. And you could just give me a second count of like how long it took before you got that hello back from me. I think, Rebecca, you're on YouTube as well. I'd really appreciate it. Hey, Michaela said hey, hey back. How long was that? Hey, Rebecca said hey. Michelle said bye. See? That was me doing it bang, bang, bang. And if you guys could give me a feeling, was that like 30 seconds? Was that 5 seconds? Pretty instant, Rebecca writes, huh? Ah, okay. Great news. Good, good, good. Well, that's what I was hoping. Michaela says 10 seconds. Fantastic. That's so much lower than what it's been. I think that we're gonna keep it like that, okay? And you guys on YouTube, Michaela and Michelle, Rebecca, you guys didn't notice did it feel like the connection wasn't as good as usual? Sorry for everyone on Facebook right now doing this. It's just good to know as far as like tech stuff. Thank you for being guinea pigs, as always. Did you guys over on YouTube feel like image was a little bit blurry? It was taking some time to kind of come into shape. Give me your thoughts on that if you can, as we say goodbye. But we're not saying goodbye. We're just saying goodbye for right now. I think it's a plane every 10 to 15 seconds goes overhead. Pretty incredible. Not blurry at all, Michaela. Great. Awesome news. This is fantastic stuff. So here's one of those lamps. Is this supposed to be telling us a secret message? Anyone there, huh? Clenched feet, but I think. And then, yeah, there it is. We find each other. Conocer y compartir. Compartir. Conocer is to know, right? But compartir, is that to buy? Comprar? Compartir. Michelle says YouTube sometimes a little blurry, Facebook crisp image. Rebecca, I think it today was good. Alexa, not sure, but a hammock and a nice park by a lake sounds great right now. Yeah, I feel that. I wouldn't want to. I think we're gonna maybe get a little bit more rain today, unfortunately. Oh, these are very pretty. Why don't we? How nice that is. How do you teach a plant to do that? Ah, thank you, Mila. Thank you, Alexa. To share. Compartir is to share. What's la hamaca? Oh, la hamaca is a hammock. Ah, welcome, guys. You haven't just learned about plants today, but we're also going to be teaching you Spanish. Flores. There we go. La hamaca. Compartir. See? This is great. Thank you for doing your work, buddy. I really appreciate it. Oh. He's like, dude, I didn't sign a model release form. Don't even think about using my image. All right, that's enough, right? Yeah? Are you guys satiated? Did we get some... discovering more beautiful plants real quick. Do you guys feel satiated for now? You ready for a break? Take a little bit of time and I'll see you again in about 2 hours. Ross, I'm going to call you immediately after this live stream on Facebook. And one last set of plans. Arandira. Hi from California. Thanks for joining. And Bar, thanks for chiming in over on YouTube. Glad you enjoyed. You saw some plants like this before, but it's just so pretty. One last quick little looky look, and that's it. All right, guys, if you're not busy and you've got some time, then please check us out again in just about 2 hours, like an hour and 45 minutes or so. See you in a little while. I'm gonna hop in a car and start driving. Thank you especially to all our contributors today. Jeanette, Alexa, you guys definitely scored the gold medals, the shared gold medals for community contribution to this live stream, so I really appreciate you guys. And we're gonna give the silver to the plants and the bronze for the bees. The bees get the bronze. So everyone gave something to it. And now you guys know Queens Botanical Gardens, Wednesday afternoons or Sunday mornings for free entrance during the main year. And then in the off season, October to March, pay what you want when you come. So here's another great little escape from actually an incredibly high population density area, and yet still right smack in the middle of it, an oasis of peaceful humming, buzzing, and flowers and trickling streams and such. So thank you guys. Yes, absolutely, Bar. Happy to provide a little calm to your evening. Michaela, thanks for the wave, and Jeanette displaying her medal already. No shame there. Not gonna put that in your pocket. You're gonna keep it around your neck and show your gold. And thank you, Michelle, for the bee. Guys, for now, take care. We've now left the Queens Botanical Gardens. Goodbye. Goodbye, gardens. We'll see you again, okay, sometime very soon. And I'll see you guys again very soon as well. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Ciao for now.